Hi, welcome back to our playthrough series of Lord of the Rings Online, King's Gondor, Gondor Renewed. We're continuing the main quest where King Aragorn, now known as Elisar, is going throughout the kingdoms of Gondor and kind of restoring things after the War of the Ring. So, we're in the center of Arnach here. We're going to talk to residents of Arnach.
That is the king? What's he doing here in Arnach?
That is the king. Doesn't he know he is supposed to stay in his tower? What's he doing here in Arnach? I don't think he's a very good king if he doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be picking berries and hunting to fill the storehouse. Now that the men have come back from the war, he's not going to do that, surely. Oh, there's a lot of people on the road right here. These talbards on these horses are cool. I wonder if all the little shields and talbards are different for the little different settlements.
Is that the king? What is he doing here?
Have we done something wrong, stranger? What could bring such as he to our little village? Is he here to punish us? Have we not suffered enough? Oh, if only Lord Forlong had returned from the fighting, he would speak to the king and tell him we have done all we should. So Forlong is the leader of Arnach, and he died in the Battle of Pelennor Fields. So this is, now that I think about it, these talbards are probably for Arnach.
That is King Elisar! Oh, I would know him anywhere.
My family attended the royal wedding, stranger. Well, we were among the crowd, but even at such a great distance, I can tell the king and his elf bride would be so happy in each other's arms and would rule Gondor fairly and well. But I do not expect either of them to come to Arnach. He's going to get mud all over his fine clothes. Oh dear.
What do the folk of Arnach need us to do?
You tell Elisar that some of the folk believe that he is here to punish them, and the kings and the stewards rarely came to their village before, but others planned to pick berries and hunt for game to fill the village storehouse. I'm not going to punish them. They and their lord did more than they could expected for any during this past few months. We will help them with their task, my friend, and we will move on, and we will leave their storehouses filled. Alright, so we need to get some food for the storehouses. There's a chicken coop. I really like in Lord of the Rings Online, they do a really good job of, like, lots of abundant food sources, like the infrastructure, the food source, the water source is very believable, and like lots of farmland. Also, there's lots of there's lots of housing. There's lots of, like, it just feels like a really alive, lived-in world. Where a lot of other MMOs. The world feels like only populated in the areas that the players are. And so it kind of just breaks the immersion feel of it's not a very big expansive world. It's not lived in. So we're looking for berries. I don't see any. A lot of times when you're doing these sort of gathering quests, like if you look, there's like fields everywhere and bushes everywhere, so it's really hard to see any berries. What you can do is kind of run in the quest area that's highlighted, and hit delete. See right there, if you hit delete on your keyboard, what it does is it highlights anything interactable in your environment. So this can be gathering resources for crafting, or it can be, in this case, quest-related things. It's a really, really helpful tool. See, like right there, I would not have known that was a collectible. So if you hit delete on your keyboard, and then you hit U on your keyboard, you will autopilot go collect that thing. There's a wolf here, hang on. So that's super, super helpful. Alright, so we need to get that last one. And again, once you're in the... So there's a highlight over here where you gotta collect that last berry. If you're in the vicinity, you can be hitting delete on your keyboard and it'll highlight the thing you can interact with. Then you hit U. And Eladan is already over here. What's he doing? And hitting delete and then hitting U will gather. It'll select
This was
the
my berry bush.
item, and
No,
then you
it's
can
fine.
hit U to collect it. So the bounty of all of these bushes will end up in Arnach's storehouse. Mine that I picked the finest berries. It's cool that Eladin and Elro here are here in this vicinity. I think they're pretty cool. They do a lot with them in the Lord of the Rings Online, like in the Trollshaws zone and in Eregion. You do a lot of like, I think it's called the Further Adventures of Eladan and Elrohir. And they're the other cool thing is they're very present in the books, where they're always around Aragorn. Here's Arwen, the hunter who brought down the deer.
I borrowed this bow from my brother Elrohir. Will you return it to him?
I may be queen, but I think it's important for the folk of Gondor to see that I work to provide for them, as does my husband. Will you return his bow and quiver to him while I finish preparing this meal? It has been some time since I had such a task, but I do not know how it is done. Elrohir will be somewhere within Arnach. We're doing a lot with Arwen's character too. That's kind of cool. But what I was saying about the twins of Elrond, they're really present around anything Aragorn is doing, which is cool. But then they're like in the Fellowship of the Ring, they're like getting news of the North. They're meeting with Aragorn, and then in the Return of the King, they're a part of the Grey Company. And they bring like the standard of Gondor, and they travel like south with Aragorn through the Paths of the Dead. They're there in the books. And then after the War of the Ring, in the Fourth Age of Middle-earth, they actually stay in Middle-earth with Arwen. And even after Elrond leaves for the Grey Havens and sails to Valinor, they actually stay in Middle-earth. And I think in the appendices, or it's either the appendices or the Untold Tales, it talks about how Elrohir and Eladan and Galadriel's husband, Celeborn, are like the three, and the shipwright in the Grey Havens, forget his name, but there's only like 4 elves left in all of Middle-earth. Interesting.
I see my sister has finished with the bow and quiver I lent to her.
I hope she was not too disappointed and to bring down any prey. You tell the Elrohir that Arwen is even now preparing the meat for her fruitful hunt. And he laughs. Even after so many years, she is still skilled for it. I had thought residing in Imladris these past years might have driven how it is done from her memory, but I suppose it is not so. She need not prove it to me, though perhaps it is for the folk of Gondor she thinks of convincing. Anyway, thank you for returning my bow and quiver. Aragorn's over here hammering a door.
Thanks to our efforts, the folk of Arnach will be well provided for in the weeks to come.
I hope there will be comfort for them in the memory of Forlong. Will you speak with Baranor and learn if there is aught else we can do before departing? Who was that? Talk to Baranor.
We
Kinda
do
looks like
appreciate
Forlorn.
the work you all have done for us. Of course we do.
Well, the folk of Arnach are a little uncomfortable with their king doing such labor. It's not unwelcome. They're just unused to such things. They have taken hard the death of Forlong. If you encounter him in a tavern, he would buy ale for everyone in the place and spin tales you couldn't help but believe, no matter how incredible they seemed. But he was one of us, good old Forlong. This king and his elf queen, they seem well intentioned. But it will take time for the people to warm up to them, you understand. The king wishes to know the news of Upper Lebanon. I have been in contact with Captain Imladir of Tumladen, and he says now the war's over. The refuge is emptying, but slowly. Other than that, I've heard little. Okay. Yes, I think Tumladen is in the next zone, right? Yeah, Upper Lebanon, Tumladen's up here. And I think that sounds familiar. I think that's where the refugees leave Minas Tirith.
Aye, Baranor surely speaks truth.
Tumladen must be emptying of refugees now that the War of the Ring has ended and the people of Gondor return to their homes. I would like to hear how that proceeds, but perhaps we need to not bring the company there in its entirety. Get 150 virtue points for this one. And that finger, it doesn't have might, but it does have critical rating. And it is a lot higher item
I
level.
will go with the rest of the traveling party to Lagir, but I ask that you journey first to Tumladen.
Tumladen is how they pronounce it. And speak with Captain Imladir. If he has need of you, do what you can to assist him in my name. When he can assure you that the situation of the refugees is well in hand, then I will see you again in Pelagir. I have much to discuss with Sergon, as you know, and I would prefer to speak with him sooner instead of later. Alright, so we need to go over to the next zone. And we can go right across this bridge. This is a huge bridge, wow. I love the grand scale of Lord of the Rings Online. They do a really good job of just like, look at that. And and then you can look over there. That is Imloth Melu, where we were in the previous episode. And I think that's why their Talbert is actually a rose. Because that's like the gardens of Gondor. There's a beacon right there on the left. I like to do this a lot where I just take my UI off and run around. What's this guy's name? It's a quest giver, but that's probably a side quest. We'll get up to the top of this beacon. Yeah, look at that. Just such a cool world they've made. Well, so we're looking straight over here. That's Tumladen over there. Down that way is Pelagir, so we gotta go to Tumladen. Basically just follow this path, but kind of towards the north. Yeah, in the Lord of the Rings movies, you don't ever really see any of these settlements in Gondor. But in the Return of the King book, I remember there's like, there's kind of a storytelling of Gandalf and Pippin in the walls of Minas Tirith while it's being sieged. And then there's like a storyline of Merry with the Rohirrim. And then there's a storyline of Sam and Frodo, obviously, in the Mordor area. Not quite. They're kind of before the gates of, you know, Mordor, Blackgate. But then there's also a there's a whole quest line of Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas going through these areas. And that's where they get like the army of the dead and all that kind of stuff. And they assault Pelagir, they infiltrate the Corsairs. So there's a lot that goes on. Make sure I have this travel point. Because I think technically... Oh, I guess I do.
Hello there.
Technically, these are all like new areas that I haven't discovered in, even though I've come through here before when the war was happening. I also like that every little like base node area, every little settlement looks a little different. There's a different flag. It's like a white flag with like ripples. That's interesting. And their talbards are kind of blue. Alright, Captain Imladir.
I cannot tell you how pleased I am that Lady Terenes has returned to Minas Tirith.
Now that the need for safe refuge from the war has passed, but there are fresh difficulties to replace the old ones, Rombar. A group of dwarves has come from Furakazar with a proposal, but I am not certain I have the authority to grant it. Perhaps you will speak with them, since you have come lately from the king. You may better know his mind and what he would think of their proposal. They are to the southeast and intended to survey the buildings of Tumladen. Dwarfs in Gondor, huh? That's interesting. Look at this fountain. That's cool. Yeah, this is a really big city here. Okay, so we need to kind of go back down this road. I need to find a millstone. Oh, there's the dwarfs right there, huh? Oh, they look cool. He's the same height as me.
It is a pleasure to make your acquaintance.
Oh, they have a cool
and
voice
I trust
actor.
you speak with the king's own authority.
The captain with whom we spoke earlier did not, and he spent many words telling us so, wasting his time and our own. I am pleased you have taken his place. My fellows and I were sent here by Hamziar, ruler of the Tamari. Folk who dwell in Fruxagar, stronghold of the White Mountains. Long have we worked alongside the people of Gondor, helping to repair and rebuild the cities, but recent devastation is worse than any in our memory, and we require a good deal more of resources if it is to be made right. To that end, Hamsiar wishes to send more crafters and dedicate more blocks of stone. Okay. And I have come to survey the needs of this refuge. Can you assure us the King of Gondor will give us his appropriate payment for any work we will perform? You tell Astidin that King Elisar is known for his fair dealings. He will greatly desires that Gondor be restored. The dwarf smiles broadly. Then we will not regret hiring the Timamir dwarves of Ruxagar. My new friend, let us continue deeper into this refuge. Yeah, that makes sense that they'd have like dwarf masons repairing. I think it even talks about that the dwarves helped to rebuild Minas Tirith as well. pile of debris. But I don't think the war came this far north. So I don't think Tomb Lawton got any damage, I don't think. Okay, so this is your typical... Wait, is it up there? It goes up there. They did a lot of work in this area. They really brightened the skybox. Things really bright, the music's really nice. Although now that I say that, I don't hear any music. Sometimes the audio settings, I think, are like they don't engage or something unless they're at a certain volume setting. Because sometimes if the voices are too loud, you'll turn the voice down and then they won't talk at all. Or the music's too loud and you turn the music down a little bit and then there won't be any music at all. It's kind of strange. Haven't figured that out yet. I don't know if it's something I'm doing wrong or what. Calming these dwarves.
I hope the King of Gondor appreciates your work on his behalf, for most of his folk may not.
Would they think to aid us if our stronghold was directly threatened while their own towns and villages were not? I know the answer, though they believe otherwise. Thank you for helping us and keep the peace. I will bring my report to Hamsar, and we will tell him that the king has for now agreed to those repairs. Our price will be fair, and our friendship between our folk. Well, there is more to be repaired than just stone, it seems. Will you convey an invitation to your king on Hamsar's behalf? He is welcome to visit us at Faraxagar at the earliest convenience. After all, it is one thing to do business between reliable intermediaries, such as you and I. Excuse me. But when rulers can meet face to face, it seems much more can be accomplished. I love the word intermediaries. That's nice. Yeah, so the like world development team in Lord of the Rings Online just always does a really good job. Like, look at these vast, these vast fortresses, vast landscapes, and like you're only ever here for like 5 to 10 minutes, so it's not like this is a huge important part of the game. But they treat almost every little corner of the Lord of the Rings Online world with that same kind of brush, where they just, we're gonna spend all this time developing this area, making it really cool and interesting. The other thing I really like about Lord of the Rings Online is the quest text. Sometimes it's hard to read just because it's like they don't, you don't normally talk like that. But they add so much context and lore and backstory.
I am not surprised to hear your report.
The dwarves of Faraxagar. For I have heard the mutterings around Tomb Lawton. The folk here wonder why its doors of the dwarfs remained shut during the war, and only opened when the danger had passed. I say they wonder, but it is not the truth. They know the reason. They resent the dwarfs for it. Well, was that help it might have saved lives. I know each folk must look after its own, but we could have used the assistance of Faraxagar before now. It is good you prevented the insults from turning into bloodshed. We have seen enough of it this year. At least even if the Tamari stayed safely in their mountains and saw none. You go now to King Elisar in Peligir. Tell him the agreement you brokered for the Faraxagar, and also the refuge until Lawton stands strong. Its purpose fulfilled, and with good fortune, it will not need to be used again for many years. Yeah, so it's just like a refuge in the mountains for all the refugees, all the people escaping the war, which makes sense. It's why all these tents. It's also hard to get to up here. Okay, we need to go down to Peligir, and I think we have a swift travel down there. Alright, we're here in Pelagir. Music kicked in right when we got here. So maybe the music only kicks in certain zones. Destroyed Monument of Castamere. Oh, that's interesting. I gotta get on the other side of this wall. Did I go the wrong? I guess I gotta go over the bridge? I'm confused. It's a really cool port city. Kinda get Dol Amroth vibes. Surely there was a way to go that way, right? I guess not. Huh. There's Sirgon.
It is good to see you back, my friend. How stands the refuge of Tumladen?
You tell Elisar about the situation at Tumladen and the expedition of the Tamari dwarves that came there to survey the buildings, as well as the resentment felt towards some of them by the Gondorians. I understand their feelings, even as I wish it were not so. Perhaps I should accept the invitation of the Faraxagar, Bromvar, in order to repair the relations between our kingdoms and theirs. But first, there is work to attend to in Pelagir.
Ships that were once the pride of Gondor lie now at the bottom of the bay, or burned along the coast.
Sirgon has been showing me the state of the Gondorian navy, Bromvar, and I confess to you that it is worse than I feared. The Corsairs of Umbar knew where to strike, and with precisely how much force, and the ships that were once the pride of Gondor lie on the bottom of the bay, or burned along its coast. It is true, we seized some for our own vessels, without which we could have not arrived at Minas Tirith in time, and most of those were in poor shape, or are now. We do not know how much of Umbar's sea power has been inherited by the Kindred of the Coins, but unless it is very little, we have scant hope of repelling it. Should the Kindred of the Coin cross the bay, the ships of their own, I have accepted Sirgon's suggestion that he step down as Lord of Lebanon in favor of his son, Faltheron, and there is a condition. He must supervise the rebuilding of Gondor's ships, and he must do it with the utmost haste. That makes sense. We have weighted daggers. I really can't use daggers for this class, so that's kind of a weird... If I was a burglar, maybe. Okay, I think we're going to pick up this quest line in the next episode where Sirgon and the Navy here in Pelagir.